Alright, today I'm going to color grade some of my old GoPro Hero 11 footage using my MacBook Pro and of course DaVinci Resolve. Let's see what I can do with my old footage with the skills, color grading skills that I have right now. So this is going to be clip number 1, beautiful shot, me on a boat, then here the boat from the side with the waves, and also this is one of my favorite shots from the GoPro in general. Such a beautiful shot, beautiful colors in here. I mean, even without color grading, this looks fantastic, but we are going to make it even better with color grading in DaVinci Resolve. So first of all of this was shot with the flat color profile, which is basically Rec 709, and because of that I'm gonna go and add my Rec 709 Note 3. And I'm gonna start adjusting some things in here. So first of all, I have input device transform, output device transform. I'm going from Rec 709 because flat color profile on the GoPro is Rec 709. Then I'm going to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. And for the output device transform, I'm going from DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate back to Rec 709 because this photo is going to be viewed in the end on Rec 709 displays and monitors and screens. But I'm using Rec 709 Type A because I'm judging the clips on my MacBook Pro display, which has a Rec 709 Type A color space. First of all, I have here a noise reduction node, and I'm going to apply noise reduction to all of these nodes because one thing that I remember about capturing these clips from this trip is that I underexposed most of the clips by about half a stop to 1 stop, which was a bit too much. As you can see, the clip looks too dark, and because of that, we have some noise, as you can see, in the shadowy areas, but it's very easy to fix inside DaVinci Resolve with the built-in noise reduction tool. So I'm just going to enable the noise reduction, zoom in. Actually, first of all, I'm going to slightly increase the exposure to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to my exposure node, HDR, and then just slightly increase the exposure to see what I'm doing. And then later on, I'm going to come back to it and readjust everything, of course. So now I'm back to my noise reduction node. Just going to zoom in here to see what's happening. I don't want to add too much noise reduction where it looks very fake. I just want to add a little bit to remove some of the artifacts and of course the noise in the shadows. So I'm gonna go in here, I set it to 2, better, and then here I'm going to increase the slider until the grain here disappears, as you can see. Somewhere around here, let's put it to like 8, not too much. Like if I'm gonna do before and after, just look at the difference, how much cleaner it looks. Before, after, huge difference. And I'm also gonna do some spatial noise reduction because there is movement in here. And I'm gonna set it to enhanced, leave it at small, and again, just go zoom in here, put it to a high value. With this one, you barely see anything, but there's definitely some improvements in here. Let's see. Let's set it to about 18. Usually, I don't go above 20 with either the temporal noise reduction or the spatial noise reduction. One thing is that if I'm going to play the clip now, it's going to stutter like crazy, and I have an M3 Max top of the line MacBook Pro. So because of that, I'm going to render cache for this node. I'm gonna enable it, and basically Resolve is going to render the clip in the background so I can preview this footage in a smooth way. But of course, the rendering time will depend on the computer that you have. Usually for me, for a clip like this of like 4 or 5 seconds, it takes about 30 seconds to 45 seconds, something like that. All right, now it's done. And as you can see, if I'm going to play back the clip, it's going to play it back very smoothly. And of course, if I'm going to zoom in here and do a before and after, you'll be able to see a big difference. All right, next I'm going to adjust my exposure. I mean, I've already adjusted my exposure with the HDR wheels. I'm going to leave it at here, and then later on, if I need to, I'll come back to it and readjust everything. Then I'm going to add some contrast. I'm going to use the contrast slider in here. Let me just add some contrast. I'm going to go way overboard and then go back. like 1.225, I would say works great. This is the before and after, before and after. Maybe it's a bit too much. 1.225. Let's do before and after, before and after. That looks a bit better, but now it's a bit too bright. So I'm gonna come back to my HDR wheels and slightly reduce it to about 0.35, something like that. Next, I'm gonna go to my balance node to adjust the white balance. And again, I'm using the gamma linear method with the gain wheel in the primaries to adjust my white balance. I've said it many times. This is, in my opinion, the best way to adjust white balance in DaVinci Resolve. I highly recommend for you to try it out. I'm sure I shot this with an ND filter, which has a red color tint, and I can somehow see it in here. So I'm gonna slightly reduce the red, as you can see, and then maybe add a touch of blue to remove the yellow, just to clean it up a little bit. That's it. And if I'm gonna do a before and after, you'll be able to see that we remove some of the red tint in here, and also the warm tint. It just looks a bit cleaner. Now for the saturation, I'm using the saturation inside the color slice page. And here, because I'm probably gonna go for a very saturated and orange vibe with this sun in here, I'm gonna increase the saturation, let's see, to about 1.3, something like that. I'm gonna go for a very saturated and, you know, like a pushed look with this frame. It's not gonna look very real, but I kind of want that with this shot. Here I have my skin node, which I'm not going to touch now because I don't have any skin tones in the shot, but I am going to come back to it later on. Now here I have my power windows. I am going to add one power window in here for these mountains in here just to make them more black. So I'm gonna go to power window 1 and basically add a window in here, like a circular window. Make it smaller, right? Just turn it around. I don't want to affect the skies too much. Zoom in a bit, increase the fade, make it smaller, and just leave it in these mountains in here. I want to make them a bit more black. And also I'm going to increase the softness in here. If you are pushing the softness in here, the maximum it will go to is 36, but you can actually just put it with the keyboard, a number. So I'm going to do like 50. It's going to increase the softness. Let's do like 70. To make it very exaggerated, and then I'm going to disable the preview of the window, go to my primaries, and with the gamma I'm going to just slightly push it down to increase the contrast in here, just a little bit, not too much. Just want to increase, you know, the contrast in the mountain in here, and that's it, like that. And maybe also I'm going to increase the gain just a little bit and play around with that. I think something like this looks great. This is the before and after, before and after, and honestly I can already leave this clip as is. It already looks fantastic, but we can do some other things to take it to the next level. So one thing that I can see here, first of all, is that it's a bit dark. I'm gonna again increase the exposure to 0.45, just slightly. And then I'm gonna go here to my Dehancer node, which is a plugin that I use to emulate film. But because I'm using it a lot in my videos and I wanna try to make it a bit different, I'm not going to use it today. I'm gonna use something that is available for free inside DaVinci Resolve, and it's called Film Look Creator, which basically does the same thing as Dehancer, but of course in a more cheap and less professional, not less professional, but less accurate way. Dehancer actually emulates specific film stocks and film prints, like it's really scientific and stuff. Whereas Film Look Creator is basically like a creative thing. You're pushing a couple of sliders and you see what you can get. But if you have the patience with it and you're like playing around with everything, you can get fantastic looks with Film Look Creator. So let's go to this node and I'm gonna add my Film Look Creator in here, and it's gonna right away apply a look to it. But of course, I don't want the shot to look like this. First of all, I'm gonna go here to the presets and choose clean slate to start completely from scratch, because I want to control everything myself. Then for the color space overrides, I'm not going to do anything because it's going to use my timeline settings basically. Then for the film look, I am going to increase it to 100% and choose a look. My favorite one from here is the Akasaka. Let me show what cinematic looks like. This is Rochester, I guess, Akasaka. Then this is Elated. I don't even know what it means. Vintage, not really a fan of that. Then Akasaka, in my opinion, looks the best pretty much all the time. And skin bias, I'm not going to touch. I am going to adjust the specific colors with the skin node that I have in here. I'm going to come back to it later on to adjust specific colors in the shot. For the exposure, maybe I'm slightly going to increase the exposure because it did decrease the exposure a little bit, so 0.1. Okay, and then saturation, I can increase the saturation slightly as well in here to something about 1.6 or maybe 1.5. Bleach bypass is kind of cool. It basically adds this black and white effect. I'll add a little bit of that, 0.1. I think it looks pretty cool. Then split tone is something that I use a lot. It basically creates a split tone between two colors in the shadows and highlights, and you can control how much of one specific color is pushed to the highlights or the shadows. Usually what I do is enable split tone, push it to 100% to really exaggerate the look, and then I take the hue angle and I look for a specific color that I want in the most prominent spot. So in this case, it's the sky. I want to really emphasize the sky and the sun and stuff like that. And I want to push it towards warmer colors because we have the sun in here, and I want to, make it feel more warm than it actually is. So I'm gonna play around with this. As you can see, like I can push purple colors into the sky, red, blue, whatever I want, but I'm gonna go to somewhere around here, like 25. Let's put it 25. And then of course you can take the pivot, which basically pushes one color towards the highlights or the shadows. Like you see now we pushed more of blue towards the highlights, and now we pushed more the orange towards the highlights. So I'm gonna find like a sweet spot, maybe something. I want more orange than blue, basically. Something like this. Let's do 0.22. Okay, now of course this is way too pushed, so I'm gonna go back to the amount slider in here, put it to like 0.3, maybe like 0.4 even. Do before and after. As you can see, it makes a huge difference, and of course later on I can always come back to this and readjust everything if necessary. Vignette, I mean, if you want, you can add a vignette in here, and you know what, it kind of looks cool with the vignette. Let's do it. Just decrease the amount. What was the default number? 250. Let's put it like here, and then play around with the size, just like a little bit, something like that. Okay, halation, I'm not gonna use halation. Bloom, why not? Let's add some bloom just because it's available, but I am going to decrease the amount to like 0.3. I don't want to have it too strong. Yeah, like if I look at the bright parts in here, it does add a bit of bloom to the sun and this spot in here. So let's leave it. Grain, you can also add film grain in here. Like as you can see, before and after, before and after. Looks kind of cool. Let's choose the 65mm preset, which is, less grainy than 35. The higher the number in here, the less grain, the less noticeable the grain will be in the footage. And the rest here, I'm not really going to touch. Flicker, gateway, film gate, not going to touch that, but I am going to touch my global blend. Let's put it to like 0.8. And now that I'm previewing this clip, let me lock this in a loop. It looks a bit weird, so I am gonna come back again to the film look creator, and I'm gonna go again to the split tone in here. Just play around with the hue angle, more yellow than red. Let's do like 27 or 28. And now I'm gonna come back to my skin node and actually control some of the colors in the frame. So first of all, one thing that I'm going to do is go to my curves, go to the Luma versus saturation curve, add a point to the darkest parts of the frame and desaturate them, just to clean the blacks a little bit. Let's see what it does in here. Okay. Let me see in here, maybe it does something. Yeah, definitely, like if you look in here, if I'm really going to zoom in, if you look at this part, it's like cleaning up the shadows. So I'm just gonna apply a little bit of this, like halfway, something like that. Okay, now I'm gonna go to my color slice page and really target specific colors. First of all, I'm gonna start with the dominant color in this shot, which is the yellows and oranges, basically the skin and the yellows. So let's push this towards like, let's see. Yeah, maybe a little bit towards orange. Like 30 points maybe. Increase the saturation. I really want to emphasize the look in here, like the warmth in the shot. Slightly decrease this just a little bit. Let's do a before and after. Huge difference in my opinion. And now also let's play with the yellows. Also increase the color density here. Maybe increase the saturation a little bit. Let me open the vector scope just to make sure I'm not going beyond these squares. And here, usually, if you go beyond the squares, it means that you are pushing the image way too much. Not all the time, but in most cases. So I'm going to put it to like 110. Let's see if I'm going to play around with these colors in here. Yeah, let's put it to somewhere around here. Green. I do have a bit of green in here. Just increase the density slightly. Maybe desaturate the green slightly. Cyan. Have some cyan on the boat. Let's see what it does if I'm going to desaturate it, because I kind of don't like this, honestly. This cyan color on the boat. So let's remove some of the color in there. Let's do like 70. Increase the color density by like 5, something like that. And maybe play around with the colors. Actually, I'm not going to do anything with that. Blue, I barely have any blue. Magenta, I don't have any magenta, but let's see the red. I just have the Thai flag in here. I can increase the color density to about here. Maybe slightly desaturate this about here. And this is the before and after, before and after. As you can see, it adds a lot of spice basically to the shot. Now, one thing that I don't like though is that there's too much blue in here. I kind of don't like this blue. It's a bit too much. So I'm going to come back to the Film Look Creator to split tone and play around again with the pivot. Just want more warmth than blue in here. I just don't like how much of blue it is in here. So this is too warm, obviously, but let's put it to like 0.125. Still a bit too much, 0.1. Yeah, something like this. Maybe decrease the amount to like 0.35. And now let's see before and after, and let's play it back. And last thing that I'm going to add in here is some sharpness, because it looks a bit soft. I'm just gonna add a node after my output device transform. And then I'm gonna go to this page in here, the blur page, and slightly reduce the radius in here, which basically going to add some sharpness. Usually I just go to 48 with pretty much all of my cameras, and it adds some sharpness. If I'm going to zoom in here, this is the before and after, before and after, before and after. Just adds a bit more detail to the shot. Basically, before it was a bit too soft, and now it looks a bit better. Alright, this is the next shot, and I'm not going to start everything from scratch. I'm just going to copy the adjustments from the first clip and just do some minor tweaking to get through the color grading as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to select this clip and, middle mouse click, and it's going to apply the adjustments from this clip. I'm going to wait for the noise reduction to be applied. Actually, here the clip is so bright, I don't even need any noise reduction. It looks very clean. Let's see if it does anything. I mean, there's some noise in here, but it's barely visible. So I'm just going to disable the noise reduction in here, because this was shot very bright compared to the other clip, which I underexposed by about a stop by mistake. Yeah, let's just start right away with the exposure in here. It's a bit too bright for me. I'm gonna slightly decrease the exposure to about, let's say like 0.10. Then the contrast is actually kind of okay. Maybe I can even increase it, 1.275, something like that. Balance, let me disable Film Look Creator, disable my skin, leave the saturation, do before and after. I mean, even the balance node here looks nice. Like if I'm gonna go to my waveform, you can see these white spots of the waves, how before there was a bit of warmth and red, and after this node, it just looks more clean. Also, look at the waveform in here. Before, you see the yellow redness in the waveform, and now just like pure white, which is what you want basically when adjusting the white balance. So this adjustment is all good. The saturation, because here I don't really want to go for a very saturated look, I'm going to desaturate this a little bit to 1.2. I would say. Now the skin node in here, I am going to reset and do everything from the beginning, because the colors here are totally different from the first clip. And I am going to also disable this window. I'm not going to apply any windows in here. It's not really necessary because this clip is fairly flat. Maybe actually, now that I'm looking at it, maybe I am going to slightly darken this part of the boat. So I'm going to go to my windows and select the pen tool and create a point in here in here, in here, in here, and in here. Zoom to fit, increase the softness to about 35. Okay, play through the clip, make sure it's all good. Yeah, it's more or less okay. And I am going to go to my color wheels, disable the preview of the window just to see everything more clearly. Go to my primaries color wheels and slightly reduce the gamma just to make this a bit darker. Something like that. So this is the before and after, before and after. Now the clip looks a bit more balanced, whereas before this was just a bit too bright. All right, let's go to the middle of the clip, somewhere around here, a good spot. And I'm gonna enable Film Look Creator and just change some stuff. First of all, I'm still gonna use the Akasaka one, the Film Look, because it's my favorite one from the Film Look Creator. The exposure, I'm gonna reset this, and then bleach bypass. Yeah, let's do that. I'm actually going to increase it 0.15. For the split tone, I am going to reset everything, increase the amount, and let's go for like a moody, cold teal look. Something, let's see, something like this, okay? And then pivot, let's put it to about here, like a vintagey vibe. 0.3, I would say, something like that. And then of course I'm gonna take the amount slider, play around with it. Let's put it to like 0.2, and again play around with the pivot a little bit. 0.4 looks great, and do a before and after. Just adds a bit of mood to the shot, in my opinion. Let's play it back. Yeah, it looks great. Vignette, yeah, I'm gonna leave it, and actually I'm gonna increase the vignette in here. Kind of looks cool. 250, let's increase it. Size, okay, something like this. Let's preview this. Looks great. Halation, don't need. Bloom, actually in this case, because of these white spots, the bloom is gonna look great. Let's see. Yeah, put it to like 0.35, maybe play around with the radius. Let's go here. I don't want to make it look too fake. Let's put it to like 20. Preview the shot. Yeah, looks believable in my opinion. And then grain. Let's leave the grain. Why not? Just to make it even more vintagey looking. This is before and after. Before and after definitely adds a vibe to the shot. Like it looks much better, much more artistic in my personal opinion. But now again, I'm gonna go to my skin node. First of all, I'm gonna try to clean my blacks. I usually do it all the time with like action camera footage, because usually you will see most of the artifacts with like action cameras, Pocket 3, even iPhone in the shadows. So you always want to have the blacks as clean as possible. Not all the time, but in most cases, in my opinion, at least, it looks much better. So I'm gonna just look at the tire in here, press this to lock the black point. And honestly, nah, I don't need to do anything. So I am gonna play with the color of the water here, definitely. I don't like this like green color. Let's see which color affects the water the most. Yeah, green makes sense. So green, I have to play with the green. I'm gonna push it around and see what looks the best. Yeah, definitely like teal looks fantastic. Before it was just green, and I wanna make it a bit more turquoise, how you say that in English, I'm not even sure. Let's push it to like minus 0.2, and then play around with the density here just to make the colors, the water a bit more dense. Let's push it to like 0.2. Saturation, I'm gonna slightly desaturate it here, because again, I'm going for a moody look with this shot, and already like before and after makes a huge difference to the water, in my opinion. This blue line, I don't like it. It's too saturated for me. So I am going to increase the density to about here and slightly desaturate this. Something like this. Also, I can play with this orange line, even though it looks very nice. Can slightly increase the density and slightly desaturate it. And maybe even play around with the hue. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave it as is. Cyan, maybe I can also play around with the cyan color in here. Yeah, it mainly affects this blue line, the cyan color as well. I mean, desaturate this a bit more as well. And yellow, yeah, we can play around with the yellow a little bit. Just cool it down. I'm gonna go for like a moody cold look. Increase the density a bit. And the saturation slightly. Come back to the green actually and push more blue into the green. Not too much, because this is GoPro footage. You have to be very careful not to completely, you know, destroy and create artifacts in the footage. Yeah, it looks believable. I mean, it looks fantastic. I like it, but it is a bit faded to me. I want a bit more contrast and punch. So let's go to like 1.3. And honestly, like, I'm super happy with this. All right, and now we are in the last shot. First of all, I'm going to reset the power window, remove the film creator, and this reset also the skin node. We don't need that in here. We're gonna readjust everything from start in here. And I am going to decrease the exposure. Here it's a bit too bright. So put it to about 0.6. Now here the contrast is way too strong, in my opinion. Let's put it to like 1.275. Something like that. This looks, wow, this shot is so beautiful. Like, I mean, not because it's from the GoPro or something, but it's a cool moment. I don't know, this boat and this guy standing here, it's like giving me vibes, man. It's like such a beautiful shot in my opinion. Regardless, enough talk, let's move on. The balance node, again, I'm gonna leave it. Actually, I think I need to reduce the red a bit more in here. Let's see, yeah, definitely. It was too much red. Let's put it to like 0.94. Yeah, like you see now the boat is super clean. Like this white part, before it was like red and a bit yellow. Versus now, like you can also look here at this part of the waveform. And then you can see the difference. Like also here, this guy, like look at him, right? And before and after, you can see how much we cleaned the clip by just a couple of minor tweaks, which is why I highly recommend for you to use this method to adjust the white balance. I know I talk about this so much, but trust me, these little things make a huge difference when color grading, because if you nail the correct exposure, contrast, and white balance, it's gonna be a breeze for you to create a look later on. Regardless, let's enable film creator, and I definitely don't like this. Maybe try a different one, just for the sake of it. I mean, they look so bad. I'm just gonna use this Akasaka one. It looks the best. Yeah, I am going to slightly increase the exposure to about here. 0.4, let's say. The fade, let's leave it on, but a bit less, 0.25. Okay, the split tone, I don't even know what I'm gonna do here with the split tone, but let's see what I can do. Maybe something warm. I mean, this shot like was on a sunny day, right in midday. Something like this maybe. Let's do like 45 and decrease the amount to 0.2 and play around with the pivot. Let's go for like something a bit warmer. Or maybe something like this, even cooler. It looks pretty nice like this. I mean, both look fantastic. You can go for something like this, which is like a very warm look. It's a bit too much for me. Or you can go for something in between like this. This looks great, like bluish, kind of midday, you know, a sunny vibe to it. I kind of like this, honestly. Let's do 0.4. See how it looks. All right, looks fantastic. Maybe increase the amount even more here. Let's do 0.3. Push it a lot. Wow, here we have to do a lot of cleaning in this part. This is way too distracting in my opinion. And also I am going to increase the contrast. Let's go back to my contrast node. I just increase the contrast to 1.3. Fantastic. Wow, this shot is so good. I love this one so much. All right, I think honestly I'm done with the film creator. I'm going to leave the vignette as is. Why not? Leave the bloom, especially with this boat. I think it looks a bit better. Just adds these lines in here, you can see. Maybe I'm going to decrease the amount to like 0.275, just a little bit. And the grain I'm going to leave on. Also decrease the amount to 0.8, 0.08, I guess. Just a little bit of grain, but not too much. You can see it in here with this boat, before and after, before and after. The rest I'm not going to touch. And honestly, this already has like a vibe to it. This shot is so good. All right, anyhow, I am gonna park it around here. I would say this is more or less the hero shot in here. And I'm gonna go to my skin node, clean up the shadows with the method I've shown you before by going to the luminance saturation, locking the dark part of the frame and just cleaning up the shadows, especially in here. Let me see if it does anything. Yeah, it definitely removes some of the blue in here. Like if you really pay attention to this part of the frame, it just removes the blue. Gonna go all the way down because honestly, I don't really like this blue part in here. And maybe also I'm going to add a mask around this because it's a bit too distracting. It's also a bit too bright for me. So let me go to my power window and go to my pen tool. I'm gonna start around here at the end. Zoom out, open this and add some softness, 25. Go to my tracker. Let's see how it does. Yeah, not the best, but I'll take it. Just decrease the gamma a bit. It was a bit too distracting, too bright for me. Yeah, now it's better. Still a bit too blue. Like there's too much color in there, but at least it's not as bright as before, right? Like before it was way too bright, and now my eye goes in here, which is where I want the viewer to look at as soon as he sees this clip. I don't want him to look at this. This is like super distracting. All right, let's come back to the skin node. First thing I'm going to do, go to the color slice, see the blue in here, just slightly reduce the saturation with the blue. Like this, increase the density. Maybe go towards like teal colors a bit. Now cyan is the water color, and here I have to be very careful not to mess it up because the water here looks fantastic. Let's go for something like this. All right, increase the density and increase the saturation just to emphasize the water color even more. Preview this. Wow, looks fantastic. All right, yellow. Let's warm up the yellows just to create some color contrast between the water and the trees in here. Then I'm going to increase the density and also increase the saturation. Why not? Let me just see that I'm not going overboard with the saturation. No, I'm good. Maybe the cyan is a bit too saturated. Can slightly decrease it to about here, but it's still, it's okay. Okay, greens. Let's increase the density. Push them towards warmer colors as well and increase the saturation. And skin, I mean there's some skin in here which I can darken a little bit with this guy in here. This guy is buffed, eh? The reds, not too many reds. Magenta, not too much. I think honestly I'm good, but again I don't like the blue in here. So what I'm gonna do is come back to this power window, which I've created a mask to, and darken with the color wheels. And I'm gonna go here, go to the curves, hue versus saturation, select this color, which is the blue, slightly increase the selection, and desaturate this. Let me see what it does. Can barely see anything. Yeah, something like this is just way too much for me. Let me see. Not gonna go all the way down because then it's gonna look too fake, but just a little bit to remove some of that blue tint. I mean, look at this difference. It makes a huge difference. Ah, it's still too blue for me. Like, I guess I'll have to go really down to remove this. Just don't like this. I don't like how blue this thing is. I like everything else in this shot except this. But it looks much better than what it was before. It was too bright and too blue. Now it looks much better. But you know what? Just as a finishing touch, I am gonna go to Power Window 2 and I am gonna go here and create a mask around this boat. Increase the softness to about 40. Then go to my tracker, start tracking. Not the best job, but it's okay. I'm gonna go to my mask now again, click this button, which is going to invert the mask, which is what I want. Gonna remove the preview and I'm gonna darken slightly everything besides the boat, just to make the boat a bit more pronounced in the frame. And let me see this before and after. Let me put it about here. And I'm gonna go to the Power Window 2 again, right click, add node, outside node, which is basically going to allow me to adjust everything on the boat itself. And I'm going to increase the gamma just to brighten up the boat and slightly decrease the lift, something like that. And here you can be able to see that I basically created like a vignette around the boat. So now the boat is brighter than the background, which is what I want more or less in this case. But also I want to keep it as natural as possible. I don't want to do something like this. Like this is obvious and fake, right? So I want to keep it natural. Like something like this looks believable, right? Maybe I'm going to slightly decrease the exposure on the boat. Something like this. Let's say before and after, still a massive difference. But I'll probably have to come back to my exposure node and slightly increase the exposure about here. And maybe even increase the contrast. 1.315. And honestly, I think I'm done with this shot. I mean, it looks fantastic. The location speaks for itself. Alright, so I think this is it for today. I hope you find this video to be informative and useful. And sorry if I was going a bit too quick through the clips. I just wanted to show you how it is to actually color grade stuff in the real world, because usually you want to create a look on one clip from one camera and then just copy paste, do minor tweaks and move on as quickly as possible to finish the video as quickly as possible. Don't want to sit on one clip for like 1 hour and then move on to the next clip completely from scratch. You want to create a look, copy paste, slight adjustments, move on, and move on, because otherwise you will never finish making your video, which is why also I have a note tree for pretty much any camera, because this keeps me organized and I know what I need to do to get a good looking image as quickly and efficiently as possible. And from my experience, the less nodes, the less adjustments you keep, the better the results. You want to make broad adjustments first, and then you want to add minor tweaks like the color targeting specific colors in the frame and pushing them around. But for the most part, the broad adjustments are going to make the biggest difference. And then later on, you can add a little bit of spice with like color adjustments and stuff like that. Anyhow, let me know down below if you have any questions or comments. And also don't forget to check out my GoPro LUTs if you are lazy to do these kind of things. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. I promised in my last video to make a video about my iPhone 16 Pro Max settings, workflow, and so on, but I'm still doing some tests. Hopefully this is going to be the next video. But regardless, see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.